Let us pray. Merciful and loving God, we give you thanks as we come to the end of a busy week. We pause for prayer on this Friday in this holy season of Lent and the week of love, especially Christ's love. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. Continue to bless and inspire the members of this house and all who assist their work. We pray that all may be done for your honor and glory. Amen. Say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
This House is in session. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024 to be confirmed. Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes for the meeting held on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024 be confirmed.
Question is that the aforementioned minutes be confirmed. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby confirmed. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, February 6, 2024, and Tuesday, February 13, 2024 to be deferred.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes so mentioned be deferred.
Question is that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. The aforesaid minutes are hereby deferred.
Announcements by Your Honor, the Speaker. Messages from Her Excellency, the President. Petitions, papers.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm commanded to lay the instrument Convention 155, Occupational Safety and Health, 1981, number 155, and recommendation 164, Occupational Safety and Health. I'm also commanded to lay instrument Convention 187, Promotional Framework for Occupational Safety and Health, 2006, and recommendation 197, Promotional Framework for Occupational Safety and Health, 2006. Recommendation 147, Occupational Cancer Recommendation, 1974. Recommendation 160, Occupational Safety and Health, Dock Work, Recommendation, 1979. Recommendation 171, Occupational Health Services Recommendation, 1985. Recommendation 175, Safety and Health in Construction Recommendation, 1988. Recommendation 192, Safety and Health in Agriculture Recommendation, 2001. Recommendation 194, List of Occupational Diseases Recommendation, 2002. Recommendation 207, Safe and Healthy Working Environment, Consequential Amendments, Recommendation 2023, and Recommendation 4, Lead Poisoning, Women and Children, Recommendation 1919.
Government notices.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the passing of a resolution that the Honourable, the House of Assembly, concur in the amendments made by the Honourable, the Senate, to the Debt, Natural Disaster and Pandemic Deferment of Payment Miscellaneous Provisions Bill 2024. Mr. Speaker, I further beg to move the passing of a resolution, beg to give notice of a resolution that the Honourable House of Assembly, with the Honourable the Senate, that the Cybercrime Bill and Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill 2024 be referred to the Joint Select Committee standing on Governance and Policy Matters, and that Standing Order 28-4 of the Standing Orders of the House of Assembly be suspended for the duration of the deliberations of the committee on the bills and any matters connected thereto, and that the committee be empowered to consider the principles and merits of the bills and to report no later than 3 months from the date of its reference. Speaker, I also beg to give notice of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital Amendment Bill 2024.
Private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills.
The Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital Amendment Bill 2024. Second.
Questions that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Caribbean Community Movement of Skilled Nationals Amendment Bill 2024.
Questions that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 425, 43, and 44 for the remainder of today's sitting.
Question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Government business, sir.
Government business is the order of the day.
Order number 9, sir. In the name of the Honourable Acting Leader of the House, to move the passing of a resolution that the House of Assembly concur in the amendments made by the Honourable the Senate to the Debt, Natural Disaster and Pandemic Deferment of Payment Miscellaneous Provisions Bill 2024.
Honourable Member for
Mr.
St. Joseph.
Speaker, I beg to move that the resolution just cited do not pass.
Questions that the aforementioned resolution do not pass. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed.
Order number 10, sir. In the name of the Honourable Acting Leader of the House, to move the passing of a resolution that the Honourable House of Assembly concur with the Honourable the Senate that the Cybercrime Bill and Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill 2024 be referred to the Joint Select Committee standing on governance and policy matters. B, that Standing Order 28-4 of the Standing Orders of the Honourable the House of Assembly be suspended for the duration of the deliberations of the committee on the bills and any matters connected thereto. And C, that the committee be empowered to consider the principles and merits of the bills and to report no later than 3 months from the date of its reference.
Honourable Member for St.
Speaker
Joseph.
begs to move that the resolution cited do not pass.
Questions that the aforementioned resolution do not pass. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed.
Order number 7, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, to move the passing of a resolution to approve in accordance with Section 5 of the Crown Lands Vesting and Disposal Act, Chapter 225, the vesting in the National Housing Corporation of 2 parcels of land situate at Castle Grant Plantation in the parish of St. Joseph in this island for a public purpose, namely housing development.
Honourable Member for St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a blessed good evening to you and members of this Lord Chamber. Mr. Speaker, I rise to introduce this resolution to vest approximately, and I use acres as opposed to hectares. He said 4.142 hectares, approximately 10.24 acres of land in the national housing. And Mr. Speaker, this land is situated at Castle Grant Plantation in the parish of St. Joseph. Mr. Speaker, let me, at the outset, praise this Lord Chamber of the Housing Trust by this government. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, we have come to this chamber on numerous occasions since 2020 to vest a number of properties either in the National Housing Corporation to give good title or in hope to give good title so that we can begin to execute our mandate of providing affordable and resilient housing solutions for Barbadians, and not just Barbadians, for those who reside here with families. And this evening is no different, Mr. Speaker. The only difference is that we are speaking of lands in the area of St. Joseph, Castle Grant. And I must say that the member sitting a few chairs away from me, the member for St. Joseph, is indeed a happy man this evening, because financial year 2024-2025 is upon us. We're at the end of approaching the end of the financial year 2023-2024. And we recognize in an effort to give good title to allow the housing program to be expedited in a seamless way, we have to vest lands. We have to acquire land either by way of private treaty, by planning gains, or the use of the Land Acquisition Act. Either way, we vest these lands within these entities to allow construction and installation of services to begin. And today I'm proud to report, Mr. Speaker, while in my view the pace has been slow, and we know why the pace has been slow, building a house is not like building a road. Building a house is not like just cleaning a piece of property. Building a house is not like signing a piece of legislation. And I'm by no means discrediting the hard work that is put into those aspects of governance. But I'm saying you have to, when you vest the land, then you engage in infrastructure. And we know the length of time that infrastructure takes. And I'm proud to report today that in the parish of St. Joseph, member for St. Joseph, you'll be happy to know that just across the street, on a property by the name of Ginger Works, we have allocated some 13 lots for housing solutions. And while we have embarked on this housing revolution, we have to be mindful that different areas of Barbados present a different dynamics. In some areas, we'll be comfortable building affordable and resilient housing. But in some areas, in this country, there are some persons who prefer to have the land made available to them and they do it themselves because of the strong family ties, especially within rural Barbados, where you have, within one family, you can find skills such as masonry, carpentry, plumbing, tilers, steel benders within one family. And that's why we were able to allocate lots at Ginger Works. And we are proud this evening to report that those lots have been translated into housing solutions by those families in St. Joseph. But we go next door now to acquire the 10.25 acres of land, 4.142 hectares of land. And on that site will be a slightly different arrangement. Whereas we intend to allocate lots again, but we intend on that piece of land to build as much as 84 housing solutions. And those lands will be vested in the National Housing Corporation to allow joint venture partnership, or National Housing can indeed transfer some of the lands to Hope Inc. so we can have a different type of housing solutions being offered to the ordinary Barbadian. But Mr. Speaker, while I start there, I won't be long this evening, but I wish to also inform the Lord Chamber. Contrary to I can't say popular belief in some quarters, this government has identified land to build more than 20,000 houses. And let me explain to you. I have here, Mr. Speaker, a document that shows across the landscape of this country, we have some 1,700 acres of land available for housing. And if you multiply that by 14, because usually we will multiply that by 10, that would give 1,700 houses. But the reason why we say multiply by 14, because we are looking at a different arrangement. We do not have the land mass to continue to build single dwelling houses on the land to provide housing for over 29,000 Barbadians. And I would divert to say to you that the last count, and I reported prior that the last count was about 18,000 applicants at National Housing. Since then, we have had several housing fairs, and at the announcement of the 10,000 housing revolution, we saw an influx of persons coming to register for houses. This total has now risen to over 25,000 applications for housing in this country. So what we are doing here, allocating these lands to build 84 houses, that will only put a dent into the housing requirement in this country. So this list here that I have shows across the landscape of this country from St. Lucie to Christchurch, to St. Philip, we have lands allocated to build over 2,000. If you multiply what I just give you, the 1,700 by 14, you will see, because we have indeed increased the number of lots as a result of duplexes and quadruplex, which are 4, and high-rise in some areas. We see that we have land available in this country to build over 20,000 houses. We can't do it all in 1 year. We can't do it all in 5 years. And indeed, you will see from time to time housing resolutions, whether they're taken by me from here or they're taken by the senior minister, to vest land so we can start this program. And I would just go into not spending too much time into the semantics as to which has the most land, but just to say to you, that lovely parish on the top of the map, St. Lucie. St. Lucie has the most land identified to build housing. Second, St. Philip. Third, that lovely parish of St. George. And we have Christ Church, St. Peter. Every single parish. The least amount of land identified to build houses, I must say, is in the parish of St. Andrew. And we understand within the Scotland district the type of topography that we have, land slippage, and we have been challenged to identify lands in that area. And recently we have gone to St. Peter, and to the good news of you, member for St. Peter, we have identified lands in Forehill, we've identified lands in Pleasant Hall and Prospect to the tune of 60 acres that will indeed satisfy the demand that we see across the constituency. Recently, Mr. Speaker, and I will touch on a few of my colleagues, if not all of them, my good friend who represents the constituency of Christchurch East, the Board of National Housing, just approved some lots, at least approximately 12 lots. And I know the people of Christchurch East would be happy to know that the member for Christchurch East heckles me nearly every day to address the land problem at Parish Land. Reminds. And, well, he says reminds, but I said heckle in a good way, because that's how we do business. And I don't feel anywhere in Belgian parlance when he approaches me, because I too heckle him for things. And indeed, we play a draft tough to man movie, all of us, and we get things done for each other, for the betterment of the people in this country. So I want to say this afternoon that the people of Parish Land will be happy that we have identified at least 12 lots that you can allocate your persons that we have discussed. The Board of National Housing Corporation has approved, and the Cabinet has given its blessings, so you can now go to your people tonight in Oistins and celebrate that those lands have been allocated. Now, Mr. Speaker, I won't go too further with Oistins, because going further with Oistins might lead me into another section of this debate that I don't choose to get into today. Having had a lovely discussion with the member for Christchurch East Central today. And we will remain focused in this chamber so we can get out of this chamber. St. John, and I must speak to St. John, because St. John also has been allocated a number of housing solutions. And I will, so we can get out of here early. So we can leave this place reasonably early. Parish of St. John and the member for St. John will be happy to know that Guinea has been passed over to us as a planning gains concept, and that is 15 acres. That is 15 acres that will give you close to 180 houses at Guinea. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, we have but some challenges. We have encountered some challenges with respect to lands in St. John. And recently you saw in the newspapers, there's nothing to hide, and we have to confront situations when we meet them. That is what governance is about, to address situations. And we saw some houses at Pool started, and the member was placed on Facebook. I don't know why persons would laugh at it, but that is good representation when he sees a housing project going up in his area on behalf of the government. He's part of a government, and he has a right to thump his chest, because he's thumping his chest not for himself, but he's thumping himself for the many people who live in St. John and surrounding districts who will be given the opportunity to own their own home. But we bought a little obstacle there, whereby the land title, we know that land at Pool was caught up in the Clico fiasco. Nothing created by this administration, and I will not go there this afternoon either. But nonetheless, we started building on land where we did not have proper title. And I said we, even if it's not me, we accept responsibility as a government. But it's nothing to laugh at, because the problem is being sorted, is being resolved, and within a short time frame, he who laughs last, laughs best. And I'm sure the member for St. John, you will go again to see as we restart that housing project in the financial year 2024-2025. And not at the end, we will start it within the first quarter, hopefully, of the financial year 2024-2025. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on, And I can speak of land that we have acquired and invested at Sergeant Village, where we are building 18 houses. And we visited there within the last 2 weeks, and the road infrastructure is indeed well on the way. The road should be paved soon from now, within a few days. And I can go on and on. We recently, though, Mr. Speaker, I'll speak to the last 2 acquisitions that we did. The Cabinet of Barbados, within the last 2 weeks, approved the acquisition of some 56 acres of land in the beautiful constituency of St. George South. And soon to be, will be an acquisition in the beautiful constituency of St. George North within the next couple of weeks. I would say to the tune of 30 acres of land. So in St. George, I can see people from Christchurch coming to St. George. I can see persons from St. Michael coming to St. George, because it's a beautiful parish. So some from Christchurch South as well coming to St. George to indeed pick up residence, because we have not an abundance of land like, say, St. Lucie and St. Philip, but we have enough land to satisfy the demand that we are seeing in this country. So 56 acres approved by Cabinet, and that's in 4 pieces of land, 27 acres, 8 one-way, 14 one-way, and you can add and see. And then what I would call the flagship of acquisitions thus far, we have acquired 140 acres at Vineyard Plantation. The Cabinet of Barbados has acquired 140 acres at Vineyard Plantation for housing development and indeed commercial activities. So if you believe that the housing program is not alive, then something is wrong. And this has nothing to do with what we have built thus far. At White Park Road, Solaris Courts, we have 16 high-rise, like gauge steel houses ready to hand over to residents within the next 3 weeks. Then we go to Haggett Hall in the constituency of St. Michael East, where we have 12, again, high-rise, like gauge steel houses to hand over for rental. Then we go to Clifton in the constituency of St. Philip North, and we have another 12 to be handed over within another 2 weeks. And we journey east again to River Crescent, where we are building some 60 units. We have thus far completed 30 foundations, where we are going to install the Jorvilla hardwood houses for the residents. So the housing program, when you add the land that we have acquired to what we have built thus far, and we have not even factored in Hurricane Elsa. That is a different story, and I will speak to that as I close, because Hurricane Elsa is a story to be told to this country. It is a story to be told to this country. Needless, I can't forget the constituency of St. Philip West. We just acquired at least 2 acres of land at Ebenezer, approved by the Cabinet of Barbados to build houses. And don't let me forget St. Michael and also St. Michael West. This gentleman I have here in my hand, a plan, and I specifically brought it so you can see it, my friend. My good friend. 2 sets of plaques. And I understand persons come to this chamber and raise paper without anything on it. But I present this afternoon a design where we can house 12 persons at Country Road. Hexpec, sorry. For you, my friend. So indeed, we're on our way. And that's only part of the housing that we will indeed be. Mr. Speaker, we do it. Member for St. Peter. And Mr. Speaker, we go across the country in every single parish. Of course, the Speaker as well. In St. Michael, we just acquired some land in Mason Hall Street, where we are also building some high-rise apartments to accommodate the residents of St. Michael. And we know how many St. Michael constituencies we have. And indeed, we support each other. And indeed, the member for St. Michael South has already sent his list. The member for St. Michael West Central has already sent his list. And, you know, that's how we do it as a party. And we will not forget Christchurch South, of course, because the people of Christchurch South, they have been dear to us. People of Christchurch, West Central, we will not forget anyone. People of St. Michael North, the member for St. Michael North, he knows very well that National Housing, they have spoken to him, and he assured them some land that is owned by government, where he'll build some high-rise apartments. We cannot build all of these houses in one go. And we have to understand, various persons may say that the housing program, some persons in quarters got in St. John, and I know the member for St. John, he will deal with them this weekend, got in St. John and sought to criticize this government's housing program. And that is where I want to end, because we will make sure as a government, we do not repeat what happened to this country in 2008 to 2018. When housing was not affordable, when the taxpayers' money were utilized to build housing for rental at an astronomical cost, $24 million on one project at a cost of $653 per square foot, $27 million on another project at a cost of $657 per square feet. That is a very high cost per square foot to build houses. $650. When we are building now, this government, we are building under $400 per square foot per house. Look at the comparison. And we are not utilizing taxpayers' money. We use the term building our housing off budget, whereby we are utilizing the liquidity within our banking system to allow most of these projects to go on. And that is the difference between this government and what was done in the last administration. We are building a more affordable and more resilient housing, and we are also utilizing the liquidity within our banking system to indeed build affordable housing for Barbadians. Let me end on Hurricane Elsa. It is always sometimes good to stay in the background and criticize. We had some 1,600 claims during Hurricane Elsa, some close to 3 years ago, not yet 3 years. And we provided material to 242 families, which left us with close to 1,450 houses to repair and rebuild. Today, we have finished 1,080 houses, which is over 75% of those houses within Hurricane Elsa. And we have started 90% of the houses that were affected during Hurricane Elsa. And when I hear the pundits in St. John and the near-seers in St. John criticize this government, don't let us forget, and we don't like to dwell in the past, because we're using what happened in the past as a gauge not to repeat as a government. Hurricane Thomas came and wrecked this country. The government had close to 2,000 claims. You know how many houses were rebuilt by the last government from Hurricane Thomas? 80 houses. 80, 80.
How much?
80.
No, say that again.
80 houses.
In how much years?
In 10 years.
No, man. That can't be true.
And then, the former member for St. Philip North, he gets in St. John. He walks around this country, beat up his chest, as if he was the best minister. And I say he would be the best minister if he goes to that place up there that you have the responsibility for. He would be the best minister in there. I shall call no name, and I should not say who I pointed to, Mr. Speaker. But the place you have responsibility for, he would certainly be the best minister of housing that this country ever had. But Mr. Speaker, and then he executed housing at $651 per square foot. $651 per square foot. That's what the Grotto and Valerie were built at. $651 per square foot. But yet, the Democratic Labour Party can boast of building over 1,000 housing. But at what cost? And then they went to Carpenter's Glade in 2010 and built over 117 houses that stood there for over 8 years. This government came in and finished the houses and engaged in a single mothers program. A single mothers program, and you can go for yourself and do the check to see how many single mothers live in Carpenter's Glade. And you can ask them about the challenges they encounter with those houses. That's the man that claimed he was the best minister of housing in this country. Don't let me dwell on him, just to give you a little bit of the history in this country and what we're doing as a government with respect to housing. But I'm pleased to report that the year 2024-2025 will be a very good year for housing in this country. But I end by saying to the banking sector and the credit unions, there's a lot of liquidity in the banking sector. And one of our challenges, and I mentioned a few, we can invest all the lands in Hope and all the lands in national housing. But if we don't get the two hands clapping between the private sector and, in this case, the banking sector and the credit unions, the speed at which we process mortgage applications is a problem in this country. And we're seeing that challenge at Vesper Gardens, where we're building 152 houses. But indeed, persons are ready to move into the houses that are finished. But yet, the holdup is in the processing of the mortgage application. While this is legal, it might not be a legal problem, but it might be a system problem within the banking sector and the credit union sector that we ought to remedy, and we ought to put our heads together as government and private sector to work on this, because it should not take us 6 to 8 months after a house has been built for a person to move into it. That's way too long, with Barbados having such liquidity in the banking sector and in the credit union sector. So that is my challenge this afternoon. While it is not an insurmountable task or something that we can't fix, we have to fix it within the shortest time frame so we can get our people in Vesper Gardens. And when we return to Poole, 201 houses, and when we go to Quality in St. Lucie, this is what I'm talking about, to build some 92 houses, we will be operating at greater efficiencies, and the year 2023, 2024, 2025 will be a record year in this country for housing. With those words, Mr. Speaker, I beg that this resolution to acquire 4.142 hectares or 10.235 acres of land at Castle Grant in St. Joseph for the purposes of housing do now pass.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, one might almost think that there was a gentle conspiracy to bring a housing resolution to vest an acreage of land situated at Ginger Works in St. Joseph to this chamber. I assure you, sir, there was no conspiracy, but I cannot contain my enthusiasm and excitement at this particular development. It has been many years since we've had the benefit of a public housing development in St. Joseph. I wonder if it wouldn't be true to say that it has been many years since we've had the benefit of a public housing development in rural Barbados in any significant way. The last time we had any semblance of public housing in St. Joseph under this administration would be just as we debated office in 2008. On that occasion, we were able to subdivide and put in infrastructure for just around 12 or 13 house spots at St. Anne's. I regret to say, Mr. Speaker, that those house spots have not been taken up. I fear that, well, they've been allocated and purchased, but only 2 houses have been built on them, and I fear that it has to do with perhaps a natural superstition. People don't like building houses by a graveyard. But be that as it may, Mr. Speaker, there's a tremendous request for housing opportunities in rural Barbados, and that is no different to what I see as MP for St. Joseph. Part of the challenge, Mr. Speaker, has to do with the fact that we are made up of land that is very susceptible to slippage. And this has therefore presented difficulties in terms of building large settlements. It has meant that a lot of the land area that is in the parish of St. Joseph certainly is not readily suitable for housing. What that has meant, Mr. Speaker, is that many of my constituents have been forced to seek housing opportunities in Christchurch, St. Michael, St. James, and that has presented a problem for rural Barbados, for my constituency. I've had the opportunity to say in this chamber, Mr. Speaker, that if we do not keep people in rural Barbados, those rural communities are going to die. I don't think we spend enough time thinking about what that would mean, Mr. Speaker. I can identify with exactly what the problem would be. That you have churches in these communities, if the congregation has to move out and seek housing in St. James, then those churches will die. The village shops will die. Commercial activity will not have a critical mass so as to be able to sustain itself. So for me, Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that we rebuild our population in rural Barbados. I think that it is obvious why we would want to do that. I'm excited, Mr. Speaker, about Ginger Works, and I'm very happy that Ginger Works is being invested in the National Housing Corporation. Because of Hurricane Elsa, we were forced to go in at very short notice and make some lots available for emergency housing. The number of those houses were 5. But in doing so, it allowed us to be able to add an additional 7 or so house spots to that community. But that, Mr. Speaker, had so much interest. We had dozens of people who wanted to vie for those additional 7 or so house spots. And it has been a clear demonstration to the National Housing Corporation that there is a demand for housing in St. Joseph, not simply, Mr. Speaker, at the behest of people who are Josephines, but also people who live in other areas outside of St. Joseph currently, but want to come back to St. Joseph to live, perhaps because they grew up there, they had family ties there. But generally, Mr. Speaker, there is a thirst for housing solutions in Barbados. And Mr. Speaker, I've asked the Minister of Housing, as they proceed to do the larger area, because this vesting, I think, is of two areas, a smaller area and a larger area. The larger area is expected to give us, I think, anywhere between 50 to 70 house spots. How many? 61. And I've said to the Minister of Housing and his team that we need a multifaceted approach to how we deal with these house spots. And I've asked them to make sure that there are what we used to call sites and service lots included in this mix. I have a lot of constituents, Mr. Speaker, who want to own their own homes, but because they do not have a relationship with the commercial banking sector, because they operate on an informal basis, The opportunity to walk into a bank and say, I want to borrow money to buy a house spot is simply not available to them. For many years, Mr. Speaker, Barbadians would rent a house spot and build a house on it, sometimes over time. Some will be so fortunate as to have somebody give them a house or to buy a house and they move it onto the site. But over time, Mr. Speaker, over time, we've seen that those houses have been developed into sometimes multi-story houses. What started out as a little wooden house with 2 bedrooms becomes converted to 3, 4, 5 bedrooms and really constitute mansions. The focus of the National Housing Corporation, and I have no difficulty with it, it has been on making sure that Barbadians have the opportunity to own homes through having title. But there is an avenue that still must remain open and available, Mr. Speaker, for those Barbadians who cannot walk into a bank, who do not have enough savings, who cannot say, I can get a mortgage. There are still many of those, Mr. Speaker. And I'm very happy that the Minister of Housing has heard that particular plea and he's given me, I wish I could say it's an assurance, I hope it is, that part of the 10-acre site, I think it's about 10 acres, the larger area, will be dedicated to sites and services. In other words, National Housing Corporation will put in the roads, but instead of saying to people, you have to buy this, the individuals will have an opportunity to rent a house spot, which will cost them just a few dollars each month, but without having to carry the burden, without having to carry the financial load of a mortgage, they will then be able to say about building their house piece by piece or by getting a house from somewhere and putting it on the spot and making a home for their families. This remains an important part of Barbados. Mr. Speaker, I grew up that way. The house, my family house, my parents' house, was not built because my parents could get a mortgage anywhere. They rented a spot, Mr. Speaker, and over time they built the house for them and us as their children. It is still a respectable way to go about securing housing, and I'm happy, sir, that this administration remains committed to seeing that as a viable option. So at Ginger Works, Mr. Speaker, I have asked that they allocate approximately 1/3 of those house spots for people who want to be able to rent a house spot and build. I admit, Mr. Speaker, that there are instances though where people come and rent a house spot and sit on it for many years. Now, if you buy a house spot and decide to sit on it, that is a matter for you. You'll be paying land taxes on it and so on. So we can't get into that. Though in some areas, Mr. Speaker, there are restrictions. Some countries, and in fact, in some developments in Barbados, there have been restrictions imposed which said, if you do not build on a particular spot within 5 years, be coming back for it. Because the idea, Mr. Speaker, is to satisfy a vibrant housing market, not to provide house spots for people to speculate on, buy and hold on to it and say, well, I'm buying this for my children or my grandchildren, or I'm buying this as an investment and down the line I intend to sell it. That is not the reason why government gets into housing projects. It's not getting into housing projects so people can speculate or hold on to properties as an investment. We need to see, the need for housing is so great, Mr. Speaker, that we need to see people build on houses, build on spots at the earliest opportunity. And therefore, I understand that the policy of the National Housing Corporation, which will be held to in respect of these service lots, will be that we will rent you the spot, but you will have within 3 to 4 years to put something on it. Because we're not interested in you renting the spot and keeping it for a grandchild. That takes property out of circulation, and it's fine to do that in the private sector, but not where the government is subsidizing housing solutions. That is not what we're after. In addition to the 1/3 that is being allocated for service lots for rental, Mr. Speaker, we are also going to offer some for sale, and that will target the other segment of the market where people are working in a steady job, part of the formal business, part of the formal sector in Barbados, and can walk into a bank and say, I want to borrow some dollars to buy a house spot. And then over time, I will build on that, sir. Mr. Speaker, the last time we had a significant housing development in St. Joseph, I mentioned the last time we had any, but the last time we had a significant housing development in St. Joseph would have been around 2004, 2005, when we did 100+ lots at Blackman St. Joseph. That community, sir, has been successfully built out. It has given rise to generations of Josephines. It is a wonderful place for people to live. People have their small businesses in the area. It has been a credit to St. Joseph, but perhaps most importantly, sir, we've been able to keep some Josephines at home. We've been able to keep people in St. Joseph. And I'm most excited about having these spots at Ginger Works because it represents an opportunity for us to keep St. Joseph people in the parish of their birth. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support this resolution wholeheartedly. But it would be a failing on my part, Mr. Speaker, if I did not reflect for the moment on the fact that as we increase the population densities in rural Barbados, we also have to pay attention to the services. I am very proud that over the last few years, we've been able to settle the water issues. I believe it's fair to say that we've solved the water issues in St. Joseph. Perhaps 5 years ago, the idea of bringing another 60 house spots to St. Joseph, and I hope we'll get more, Mr. Speaker, in other places, would have been a problem because we simply could not supply the water that is needed. But we've put in a brand new reservoir at Castle Grant. We've done a lot of infrastructural works, and therefore, St. Joseph, we've managed to solve the water problem in St. Joseph so that the people who come into Ginger Works, in fact, Ginger Works is just a button and bounding Castle Grant, Mr. Speaker. So these individuals can come to St. Joseph and knowing that when they build their house, they will be able to have an adequate supply of water. This means a lot, sir. I've had situations when we had the difficulties with water where people had houses that they could not rent out. Nobody would rent them from them because every single day in St. Joseph, we used to have water problems. That is now a thing of the past. And therefore, I think that we are able to say to individuals who might be from outside St. Joseph, might be a little skeptical, you can come to St. Joseph now without fear of having to deal with those issues. We have to spend some time, Mr. Speaker, on our road infrastructure. No point bringing an additional 60 households to St. Joseph. Over time, I want to repeat, Mr. Minister, over time, more than that. But there's no point bringing the people to St. Joseph unless we address some of the other infrastructural issues, Mr. Speaker, the bad roads that we have to deal with. I understand that the Ministry of Public Works is coming to St. Joseph soon to continue the milling and paving project. But one area, Mr. Speaker, that a constituent reached out to me with tremendous angst about over the last day or so has to do with Groves, what we call Groves Corner. Groves Corner, Mr. Speaker, it is a place that we've navigated repeatedly and for the most part without accident. But it is a junction that is very difficult to navigate. And the Ministry of Public Works has a design for a roundabout in that area, and I want to call on the Ministry of Public Works, Mr. Speaker, to get about the business of putting that roundabout at Groves Corner. We are very fortunate that we've not had any major incidents. But for a long time, we didn't have major incidents at Brighton either. But because of the increased volume of traffic, there are some areas that have become more dangerous. And I fear that Groves Corner is approaching that particular threshold. And therefore, I don't want to see us bringing additional housing to St. Joseph, but not addressing the other issues that have to be addressed that are of relevance. Practically everybody who lives in St. Joseph will make their way to town on a daily basis. And with this increased traffic, sir, it will be important for us to pay attention to the road infrastructure. It'll be important for us to pay attention to that junction at Groves. Mr. Speaker, I am grateful to have an opportunity to speak about this intended housing project. The Minister has not been so kind as to give us a timeline, but in other places he has assured me that they will shortly be going to the Chief Town Planner, well, the Planning and Development Department, formerly the Chief Town Planner, to get the planning permission. I do not anticipate that is something that should take long. And then once that has been done, Mr. Speaker, I hope that the Ministry of Housing, the National Housing Corporation, will be able to begin to do the work at that location so that people in my constituency and those from outside who I want to welcome to my constituency, Mr. Speaker, will have an opportunity to come and live and enjoy the wonderful breezes and very pleasing atmosphere in some of the nicest parts of Barbados. With those words, Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I will be brief this afternoon, but I felt it was important, sir, to add my voice to this debate because as part of the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, as you are well aware, sir, we have committed to increasing, sir, the level of private investment in this country from $1 billion a year to $2 billion a year, sir. And that investment, sir, includes a significant part of it relating to provision of private housing in this country. And as the Honourable Minister raised in his debate, in his lead-off, sir, of this resolution, the HOPE program is a critical cog, sir, with respect to our war on housing. And our commitment, sir, to not just clear the backlog at NHC, but genuinely, sir, to work strategically with the private sector to be able to unleash these opportunities and to allow Barbadians to be comfortable in their homes, whilst at the same time, sir, responding to the resilience matters that we know are critically important. And the Honourable Member raised a specific point, sir, that we all must appreciate and understand the difference, sir, between the Barbados Labour Party and any other administration that's led this country before, sir. You cannot, sir, expect to be able to respond in a fast enough, at a fast enough pace to the demand for housing, sir, if you are spending $657, sir, per square foot to provide housing. And therefore, this government, I will reiterate, sir, through the HOPE program, and as the Minister has come here to be able to vest these lands, and he went through a very specific, he didn't give all of the things that we have done, but we have used planning gain, sir, which for the benefit of the public is simply that if a developer has, for example, sir, 200 acres that they want to develop, the government will get a percentage of that, sir, 10%, 20%, depending on what is available of those lands, which we then use, sir, because we get those lands for free as part of the transaction for the subdivision, for free. And we use those lands, sir, to develop and to give to persons at a lower cost, such that it allows the individual, sir, to focus more on the construction of the home through the processor, which will then unlock, sir, a number of mortgages, if you like, for persons to be able to enter into, such that we can build climate resilient homes. And that is the substantive difference, sir, between our policy and that of the other side. And I think it is important, sir, to recognize that we are continuing to see not just the demand for housing, but the supply certainly is ramping up. And therefore, as the Ministry of Housing works to be able to not just vest, but to put in the sites and services, sir, to be able to accelerate the allocation of those lots, so that if you like number 7, sir, you're going to choose number 7 in Ginger Works, sir, if you are so amenable just up the road, sir. And therefore, if that's what the piece that you want, you go to your financial institution, sir, and be able then to move forward from there, sir, with certainty, so that you're not on this never plan, sir, of applying to NHC, and then you ain't hearing nothing, sir, for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And therefore, this government, sir, is addressing, sir, substantively those issues. And therefore, Barbadians can feel comforted that as we are not just going through the process, because as you will appreciate, sir, you're not going to put out any money of your certain, sir, in relation to where you stand. And therefore, to the extent that we have to make sure that all of our I's are dotted, sir, and our T's crossed, we are going through that process methodically in order to respond. Now, sir, I find myself in almost 4:30 on a Friday evening, sir, talking about housing in this way, sir, because whilst for most people, housing may be regarded as a social issue, sir, we are looking at this in a multifaceted way, sir. Getting Barbadians not just to own a piece of the rock, sir, but to understand, sir, the value of their homes and the potential, sir, to be able to extract, sir, wealth out of the value of their homes is something, sir, that we now have to spend some time educating Barbadians as to why that's important, sir. And I know, sir, that for all of us, owning a piece of the rock is the thing, sir. The reality is that it depends on which piece and for how long that particular piece you need to own, sir, in order to ensure then that you can extract the value that is potentially there and own another piece. And that is something that as Barbadians, sir, we have to develop that mindset, because things change, sir, and to the extent that things change, then obviously you have to put yourself in a position financially, sir, to take advantage of said opportunities. And one of the beautiful things about what we have done in the HOPE program, sir, is on the one hand, we've been able to reduce the cost of development, meaning, sir, the infrastructure, whether it's the underground utilities, whether it is the water and the road infrastructure. We've reduced those costs, capped those costs from our side, allowing the transfer with respect to those lots, sir, to be at its highest value, so that the person enters the transaction, sir, with that land value as the equity in the property. And to the extent that the Barbados government, through HOPE, is putting solar PV on the property to be able to repay that cost, sir, then realistically, sir, what we are actually doing is once the PV generates the electricity, sir, to pay off those costs, the home becomes now an income-generating asset because it's generating electricity, sir, into the grid, then for the benefit of the homeowner. And there's tremendous value, sir, there for low-income Barbadians to continue then to afford the mortgage that they would have, sir, such that they're able then to be able to make different financial decisions down the road. And that is something that this government, sir, is extremely proud to being able to introduce. And therefore, we want to make sure then that as far as possible that Barbadians are fully exposed to these opportunities and given the opportunity to be able to participate. As you are also well aware, sir, you may have some family land, sir, half acre, you and I are brothers, sir. And to the extent that we got a half acre land that our father or mother left for us, sir, we too can benefit from the HOPE infrastructure by being able, sir, to subdivide and put the HOPE home, sir, on that half acre. And therefore, we are not just doing it in the way that it is normally done, sir, where we go and acquire land or through the planning game process. HOPE can come on to our family land, sir, and facilitate it. But you know what I mean, sir? That you and I, as brothers, got to sit down as big men, sir, and work it out to make sure that the subdivision is done as appropriate and therefore allow the process to move ahead, because there are a lot of families across this country, sir, for whom this opportunity is available, but because of some, familial difficulties, that could prove challenging, and therefore we have to make sure that we speak with our constituents to enlighten them, sir, as to these opportunities that exist. Because we have to be able to provide and keep communities together, sir, where appropriate, keep families together where appropriate, sir, and that is something that is absolutely important for us to be able to do, so that you don't have to feel as if, sir, you got to leave where your family resides necessarily to go and get an opportunity in other areas. But these are things, sir, that people now have to make sure that as brothers and sisters, sir, within the family, that we have to have these mature conversations in order to unlock this type of thing. Because realistically, sir, it means that the cost of the sites and services, sir, are reduced in relation to that, and therefore the development costs with respect to being able to introduce the homes, because the key, sir, is to allow for resilient home building in this country, and therefore we believe that if families with lands that are available, sir, within communities, that if they can come together as mature adults and work together to be able to unlock these opportunities, sir, then it means for them that they are genuinely, sir, will be focused more on the cost of the construction as opposed to including any development costs and the like. And therefore, it really does add value, because for them, sir, the PV on the roof is straight off, then just part of the original mortgage, and they'll be good to go. But this is how, sir, we believe that we are going to be able to unlock opportunities in this country. I know that in some quarters, and I must confess, sir, I'm not, outside of the election, sir, I'm not prone for reading anything that the other side will put out. But for the purposes of the debate, sir, I had to just remind myself, sir, as to what was put out in the last election. Because as I understand it, sir, some people were seemingly lost in George Street sometime today. And therefore, I found myself reading what was put out to remind myself of what was said in relation to this matter. Because it is particularly important for us to appreciate and understand, sir, that this Barbados Labour Party, sir, we don't build houses, sir, at $650-something a square foot, sir. We do not. We do not, sir. And that is not to say, sir, that Barbadians don't deserve $657 a square foot. But you cannot afford, sir, the average maid, sir, the average public servant, sir, cannot afford $657 a square foot. And therefore, when people talk about responsibility and where the money gone and all these types of things, sir, then there are questions to be asked there, sir, because there's no reasonable explanation, sir, for that kind of expenditure. And if you think about the number of houses that could be built, the number of units that could be built, sir, for $657 a square foot, then it tells you, sir, that people were not focused in actually genuinely, sir, providing accommodation for ordinary people in this country. And I know that our designs from inception, sir, were one, to ensure that we can provide accommodation for low and middle income persons. We cap the cost of the development cost of the land. We focus on the design to be climate resilient between 2 and 3 bedroom homes, sir. Originally, before COVID, the price, I recall, the price of the 2 bedroom was around $180,000 or so, whilst the price of the 3 bedroom was just about $200,000, sir. Designed to be able to be climate resilient, but also affordable, sir, with respect to where we were going. And then obviously, sir, the right to own options, and I know that we have a number of options in there, not just the Hope, but the Juravilla and other options in there, sir, that are at different tiers to allow persons to be able to have options of affordability. And therefore, I am very proud, sir, that, and I want to urge the Ministry of Housing and ITSE, Hope, and the others to do a very robust promotional campaign to remind Barbadians that this program is our program, and that we want to be able to ensure that wherever they are in this country, sir, if you've got a piece of land that your family land, that is also something that can be thrown into the mixer. Or if you want to go up into St. Joseph or any other part of the country where these opportunities are available, that you too, sir, can have access to these housing opportunities, because this is critically important, sir, for part of how we unlock private investment in this country and be able to see what we refer to, sir, as genuine, inclusive growth, whilst focusing on a very important social issue. But as I said earlier, sir, the value of homes, sir, are increasing through time, and persons will then have to determine, well, you know, if somebody wants to come along and make me an offer, sir, and the numbers add up for you, sir, I'm sure that you will consider it favorably. And in considering favor, you might decide you want to downsize and go somewhere else, depending on your circumstance, sir. And therefore, using those opportunities then to invest in other areas as you may so desire. And so, sir, this is a very important resolution today, as this chamber has had a number of them, certainly in the last year and a half or two. And therefore, as government ramps up its implementation of the housing, the silent housing revolution, as the member for St. George South will say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And as we have rebuilt the number of houses under Hurricane Nelson, it took a little longer than we anticipated, but the reality is, Mr. Speaker, they are being done. And I believe genuinely, sir, that this government, that we have an opportunity, we have a significant opportunity to be able to empower a number of our citizens, and to the extent that we are in the process of dealing not just with housing, but certainly drainage issues across the country, sir. We are also dealing with improvements in not just in the design, but responding in a very programmatic and systematic way, sir, to ensuring that our people, by design, that we are able then, that homes are able to withstand up to Category 3 hurricanes, as you would appreciate, sir. And therefore, Barbadians can rest assured that our policy, government's policy in total, sir, is an integrated policy framework that allows us to be able to meet the needs of our people. And therefore, it is something, sir, that we are absolutely proud to support. What we have to be mindful of, sir, and I think the Honourable AG raised it quite clearly, that we don't want people speculating, sir, coming to hold land, sir, and crowding out other people. And I believe that as we roll these options out, and be very careful, that's why by design, sir, we said, if you want lot number 7, sir, then you go and get your mortgage, sir, with whatever financial institution that you desire. Construction starts, because this is a program, sir, that is rolling out, because the construction process is an ongoing construction process once the process starts in a specific area. And therefore, it is not up to me, sir, to decide, well, I can wait 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is with respect to when they can start. This is about serious people who want to get in a home. And I say to all Barbadians that if you are desirous of owning your own home, then reach out to Hope, get the appropriate information. As these come across, these options become available in communities of interest to you, that you line yourself up in relation to being able to do that. If you have some family land, sir, that is available, that too can be pressed into action with your siblings, if they so desire, sir, to be able to do that. And I believe, sir, that if we're able to accelerate this, then the silent revolution will become the revolution as it relates to housing, because it genuinely, sir, touches a number of priority areas for this government, because it would mean that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, whenever there's a system on the horizon, he would be less worried, sir. All of us would be less worried, because as we improve the housing stock to meet the kind of standards that we know that we are designing to ensure that we build that resilience in, then Barbadians will feel, not to become complacent by any stretch of imagination, sir, but it would mean that we would be improving our housing stock and therefore having less of a worry in relation to the hurricane season. And therefore we want that type of thing to be part of what we're doing moving forward. And I'll just end on this, sir, because we have by design, a very aggressive urban regeneration program to be developed. And it is a pity that the last government, sir, sent back the IDB funded money, sir, the $40 million that was supposed to do Cats Castle and those in town, because that, sir, there's nobody that could, and Alan View, sir, there's nobody that can convince me, sir, that is not blatant wickedness. Because the reality is, sir, is that at a time when the climate crisis, sir, is accelerating, the very thing, sir, that would have been able to benefit ordinary people in this country, sir, the last administration determined that they had no longer had an interest in. So when I look at the manifesto, sir, and I see these things being espoused, I know a fact from fiction, because the opportunity to build at 657 a square foot was clearly too appealing, sir, than actually responding to the needs of ordinary people that would have given people a sense of pride to be able to have a home that they can invite people to, sir, and lifting people out of poverty. So when people talk and talk and talk and talk, sir, you have to always, sir, judge people by their actions. And therefore, sir, this government has designed an urban regeneration program, and as soon as we have the funding available, sir, we will give more information to the people, and therefore, to the extent that I know that our rate of execution in these matters, sir, will only be contingent on ensuring that people are given the right information, sir, to make the right decisions. Because I know, sir, that if you live next to me and you come and tell me, but you had this opportunity, sir, to get your house upgraded, and all you had to do was these 3, 4, 5, 6 things, and you tell me and they see it happen with my own eyes, sir, there ain't nobody that can convince me otherwise that I too can't benefit from that. And therefore, this government, sir, is absolutely committed, sir, to wrestling the issues of housing to the ground. It will take some time because people need to be able to get themselves straight, as we will say, sir, in our circles. And to the extent, sir, that I know that so long as we remain absolutely focused, sir, and we get the ministries, the agencies, and the various stakeholders, as well as the Barbadians kept informed and abreast, I'm absolutely confident, sir, that our housing program, sir, will deliver not just for the social needs, but genuinely, sir, for the economic improvement of this country. And with those 2 words, sir, I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support my colleague from St. George South. I think he's done a good job. I think he's doing a good job. And my background for saying that, sir, if we ask people in Barbados what are their main concerns socially, one of the main concerns socially, sir, is people want a job and people want a house. It is such a concern that we've coined the phrase, a piece of the rock. People want to own a piece of the rock. And, sir, following Hurricane Elsa and the ambitious undertaking on the part of the government to repair or rebuild all of the houses that were damaged in Elsa, where the occupants could not afford to do it themselves, was perhaps one of the most ambitious social undertakings that a government has ever done in Barbados. Because Elsa, sir, barely crested into a Category 1 storm. So it was at the lower end of the hurricane spectrum. So the houses that were damaged, and there were over 1,000 houses damaged in Elsa, meant that Elsa pretty much took out the most vulnerable of the housing stock in Barbados. So it started by eliminating, at the bottom, the houses that were not well maintained, were not well constructed, were not well repaired. And those houses, sir, invariably belonged to persons who were in a difficult position and unable to do what was necessary to bring the houses up to scratch or to construct them properly in the first place. So the policy that was undertaken by the government at that point in time was not simply a repair. It was a social welfare type policy to put those who were most affected, those who were not just most vulnerable, but those who were proven to have been the most vulnerable in that situation, but on a footing that they could proceed with some degree of confidence. Sir, I remember when Elsa was coming, and I was doing the rounds. I mean, we know, sir, if you're on the ground a lot, then you know who the persons are that you have concerns about. You know that you have seen this house or that house that was in a real bad state of repair. You know it. We went through the constituency, sir, and there's certain persons that we were seeking out specifically to encourage them to go into shelter. Bajans do not generally, sir, want to leave their house and go into any shelter, regardless of what state that house is in. You feel this and it happen, and you go along, people can carry away the whole house. They can take for everything from inside of it. Bajans would rather stay in their house, whatever condition it is in, than move. So I have two parents, and their house is in pretty good nick, but they're on an age. There is no way. There's nothing I could say, sir, no coercion, no inducement, no enticement I could ever make to get my father and my mother to leave their house and go any shelter. They're not doing it. And they're not alone. So, sir, after Elsa passed, we immediately on the all clear went out to look in particular for the persons that we had asked to go into shelters that refused to do it. Some had called during the storm. During the storm, when the rain started to hit, they call, you're hearing the cries, the roof coming off. Mr. Abrams, can you send somebody for us? We could not send anybody at that point in time. But we went and looked for the people immediately afterwards. And there's a house in particular, so the house folded in on itself. And the persons were trapped under the house. And they couldn't get out. So the policy to repair, or in instances where the house could not be repaired, to replace, sir, was not just simply one to make do or make good on a bad situation. It's to put the persons now in a position that if a storm is coming or something is coming, we count those as some of the persons who should be secure in their house. A man's house is his castle. So that is why the construction and the repairs that were done to a certain standard. If you look at the Elsa houses, sir, the ones that were fully reconstructed, persons in Barbados got some top-notch houses. The houses were excellently constructed. The ones I looked at, the most recently, I went and looked at some in my constituency that were going up, sir, in December, and I had to actually call the Minister of Housing while I was in one of the houses to say to him, I came to encourage the people to put some hurricane straps on the roof. But every single beam, not the hurricane strap program, sir, seeks to do the minimum, right? The four corners and something at the top to secure the roof joints. Can't remember what we call it. The what? Right. I went looking for that, sir. The house I was in had hurricane straps on every single roof beam, every single one. I went to the one next door, and it had it on those too. So I called my good friend to congratulate him on the work that was being done, and he said, but to be honest, when we build these, we don't want to look back. So they have to be built to a standard that if what passed before passes again, we at least know that those persons are covered. Sir, being frank, I don't see the government being able to ever do that again. It was one of the most ambitious projects, as I said, sir, and it delayed the housing solutions that were natural for the Ministry of Housing. NHC and the ministry had wanted to do of their own accord, build a certain amount of housing solutions per year. But some of that money, sir, and some of that effort, and some of the contractors had to be diverted to deal with the Elsa housing. So those were thousands. We don't count those when we talk about the new bills that the ministry had done. But if you actually, sir, look at those, you have over 600 new houses, sir, I believe, that have been built, and built well. So although the Honourable Member for St. George South has not reached his target yet, certain things are falling into place. Sometimes it's harder to get things going, but when you get it going and you get a template and you know what's going on, it becomes a lot easier. If you look at the houses, sir, that are being reconstructed, they follow a certain basic design. It's a well thought out design, but it follows a certain basic design. You can pick that same design up and put it anywhere. And the contractors who are now building, whereas they might have taken a little while on the first house, those who have built more than one house were faster on the second and faster on the third. So it is gathering steam. So I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable, sir, when my friend says that he's looking to build 2,000 houses a year. Right? I'm comfortable with that because I believe, sir, going forward, we can get it done. The other issue was, having said that the government wanted to put this amount of houses down per year, we had to find the land to do it. And I know that he has been coming to cabinet every single week with some other set of land he identified. Right? Once it's verified, they can take housing, that you're not eating up good agricultural land, because between the Minister of Housing, sir, and the Minister of Agriculture, they have it ding dong. The Minister of Agriculture wants to put everything in Barbados into agriculture, and the Minister of Housing wants as much land as possible for housing. So they're forced to work with each other. And the last classification I saw was marginal agricultural lands. The Honourable Member for St. George South had identified a whole set of land somewhere, 140-something acres. The Minister of Agriculture objected to certain of it, and then certain was kept for agriculture, and the marginal agricultural lands were then agreed to be transferred to housing so that housing could build on them. So we are seeing it happen, sir. A lot of people will not necessarily know that's going on, but the Ministry of Housing, sir, is increasing its stock of land to be able to accelerate its housing program. So I want to say that I want to thank the member as well personally, because I went through an exercise with him, sir, in parish land, where we literally went about, in parish land, everybody in parish land has the same address, parish land. There are over 3,000 voters in the whole of parish land, and everybody has the same address, parish land. The lots and the definition of the lots have become blurred. Landmarks have been largely ignored. Housing has gone up. So it's a matter not sort of just identifying lots, but actually making sure that the spaces that you had were resurveyed, that they didn't have an owner. If the person was dead, you tried to reacquire title. It was a whole process. But I'm glad, sir, that the process started for us. We had a lot of people who had applied. And there was some pressure, sir, because of certain social circumstances, certain family situations, certain other issues, that the pressure was really on. And my friend has come through for me in a small way. I do expect he's going to come through in a more meaningful way, sir. But, they say a little bit of content is great gain, and it's a start. But I want to say this as well to the public generally. Be fair to yourself. People need to be fair to themselves. If you want land or a house through the National Housing Corporation, you need to go and apply. Go and put down your name. It makes no sense to come to your MP and say, I want a piece of land or I want a house. Because even with the best will in the world, if we exert influence, we cannot help you if your name is not yet down. If you've applied to the National Housing Corporation 28 years ago and you have no idea where your application is, chances are it's no longer there. So don't come and say that you've applied 28 years ago. Anybody who wants a piece of land, I would tell you, or wants to get a housing solution through the National Housing Corporation, please go. The first step has to be done by you. Please go and register. They are very cooperative. I took people in there, sir, to get them registered. They're very helpful in there. They talk you through the whole process. They show you the different developments that are coming up. They show you the style of houses being constructed. They show you where the land is. They show you where they're looking to acquire. They're very, very helpful. But you need to take the first step yourself. If you have applied and your application is more than 5 years old, and you have heard nothing, then I urge you to go down there and inquire about your application. Make sure you still have a live file, because you will sit down waiting for a call, and no call is going to come. I am not casting blame on anybody. I am trying to tell people who are serious about trying to get a piece of the rock put yourself in a position to do it. With the best will in the world, if you have not taken the first step, your MP cannot help you. I cannot apply for it for you. You have to apply for it for yourself. And then we can do what we can do to try to consider your circumstance and determine which is more urgent than what, sir. The one thing I am going to ask the National Housing Corporation, please remember that we're in the process of providing solutions. A solution is the answer to a problem. So persons looking for housing solutions, sir, or land solutions are doing that because they have a problem. They're not in the marketable acquisition area. They do not necessarily have the money or the resources to acquire a loan to pay market rents on land. Land, sir, in most places, you're looking at above $15 a square foot. If you go into the market, you're looking at $18 or $20, sir, in most places. If you hit the West Coast, then you're looking at a lot more than that. The persons who are coming to housing do not have that. So I am urging housing, as you're looking at the acquisition of land, whether by private treaty or by compulsory acquisition, if you're looking at the acquisition of land to put these housing solutions, they need to always be aware that some of it is going to have to be subsidized. You cannot pitch that past the ability of persons to pay for it, otherwise it is not a solution. These solutions have to exist for those, sir, who are borderline impecunious. Actually, solutions have to be there for persons who are impecunious. And we also have to have the emergency solutions, sir, as hurricane season is coming up. I am aware that a lot of the housing stock that's available to government, to persons in, is occupied. It's occupied at the moment. Every single time, sir, that we see a weather system coming, the DM, along with the Ministry of Social Care, we are scrambling, trying to put together this, trying to find out where is the housing. If something was to happen, where can we place people? It is becoming more and more difficult. So I do believe, sir, that government has to have a stock. It has to have its own internal resources of short-stay housing that you put persons in an emergency. If their house burns down, if there's a social incident in a house and somebody has to leave in the dead of the night in a hurry. These are all things that have to be considered. And I'm happy, sir, to say that for the most part, I know that these are under active consideration by the Honourable Member for St. George South. He does not have an easy task. He has been given a mandate to construct more houses in a shorter space of time than any other Minister of Housing has before him. I am amazed, sir, that he still smiles every day and walks with a positive attitude. But he has undertaken his task, and he started off with the intent of supplying the housing solutions that are necessary for Barbados. From the immigration perspective, I know we're looking to increase the population in Barbados. We're looking to increase the population in Barbados. And with that comes certain things. The AG touched on it already, right? With the increase in population, we have to have housing. We have to sort out our water issues. We have to sort out our road network. We have to sort out our transportation issues. All these things go with that, sir. But the one I'm comfortable, sir, that we've started with a bang and are accelerating and galloping towards some meaningful circumstance is in the provision of the housing. So I just could not let this pass because my friend has done me a favor. There's some people I'm going to call this weekend. The persons who had applied, who had advised me, who we've had the discussions, who were contacted by housing, who went for their applications, I can now go and call those persons, sir, and say to them, he said it from the floor of Parliament, he gave me a list, right? The finish line is in sight. And sir, that means a lot. That means a lot to my constituents, sir, and it means a lot to people whose ultimate goal, their ultimate acquisition, and their ultimate desire is simply, sir, to own a piece of the rock for themselves and their families. So I entirely, sir, support this resolution. With those few words, sir, I thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Michael East.
Thank you.
Honourable member, your mic is on.
I can't even understand the alien environment. Right. But it also helps if they involve me when they're planning the seating. Just like how they planned seating before when former Prime Minister Owen Harper was here. And right now I'm the man closest to the door and probably the gate. So I hope that we have some adjustments, sir, so I can feel a more intimate connection.
Honourable member, the only board can put you to gate, Speaker, if you misbehave.
Well, sir,
The only board who can do that.
well, I'm not.
Fear not. Honourable member, fear not.
Okay.
Honourable member,
Well, I'm not
have
talking
no
about
fear.
misbehavior, just hoping that it will
Honourable
just...
member, have no fear.
Okay,
You
sir.
will be truly heard.
Okay, sir. I mentioned it before, nobody paid any
You will
attention
be
to
heard,
it.
honourable member.
Now, sir, I want to, not being critical of anything that my friend, and probably one of the most genuine friends which I have here, has done. I want to compliment him for all that he has done so far with the limited resources that are available to him and with the limited autonomy which he has. But I believe it is a little more than what he had before. He had to actually split responsibilities between him and another minister. And I believe, sir, it helps him to move forward with greater clarity. But I want to say, when we had one of the first housing policies that this country has ever had was not formulated so much by government. It emerged from the people, out of the circumstances in which the people live. I still believe it is a worthwhile model to modify at this stage so we can address the mammoth housing problem or problems which we have. The measurement of how many houses are required as a result of the applications at the NHC, which is a little over 20,000 houses or so, because of officers allow the government guidance reducing and obliterating names from the list at National Housing over the last few years, brought it down substantially. But I don't believe that list, that's what I don't believe, that list is a clear reflection of the housing problems. And I've said it more than once, the issue in Barbados is not housing, the issue is homelessness. Homelessness. And that's why the last member that spoke talked about the importance of revolving units, transitory units. And we see it over and over again, sir, when there's a house fire. And ministers have to be running all around. I have to be calling the minister responsible for welfare. I have to be checking the minister responsible for housing. And then we hear that there's no houses available. And we then have to encourage families sometimes to go to a house with 2 bedrooms, already got about 6 people, and then we got to ask somebody to put a family overnight. 8 additional persons in a 2-bedroom house. And sometimes it creates a lot of unnecessary social tensions at the domestic level. It tells us, as a government, not as the National Housing Corporation, the housing policy must not revolve exclusively around the Ministry of Housing. The effort becomes too cumbersome. And that is why in 1990s, Prime Minister Owen Harper introduced the UDC, because UDC was supposed to address certain issues, and RDC as well, and then put a poverty fund of over $10 million on top of that to help address the problems of homelessness, poverty. Now, this stereotype and rigidity of believing that all that NHC should do is to build houses and rent. Prior to this, I know that other people were trying to build middle-income housing with some kind of ambiguous abstraction that you will get rewards from the middle-class housing, middle-income housing, and the profits that coming from the middle-income housing will be shift in order to address the issue that our housing alone, there's 25,000 applicants waiting for housing. Now that has nothing to do with all the people we see upon the old Treasury building. That has nothing to do with the 3 or 4 people that lives in the old James Travel building, that the man who occupies it is saying that he wants nearly $2 million in order to purchase the building out of state funds. It has nothing to do with that. And at night, still run around asking people to come and sleep in here, and people complaining, saying that you got rodents in the place. Has nothing to do with that. And there are other people sleeping in Reed Street all across Barbados. There are people coming out of the prisons. And the so-called ex-cons, because that is the only word that I hear often. So as long as you go in prison, you can still be associated with being an ex-con. So the word con don't escape you even when you come out and you serve your time. But then they're not embraced at the level of their families. Nobody wants to rent them a house. So these men now have to loiter and seek shelter wherever somebody with a modicum of feelings for them with a heart would put them up during the period of time. We need some kind of transitory program for housing. All these people are homeless people. So we culture this language in low-income housing and middle-income housing. But these are people that ain't got no income at all. So how you can help now the ones that don't have an income? So they can't rent. We abandoned the welfare policy, which we had before, where the welfare department will respond positively to applicants, and the welfare department used to pay the NHC. That program already gone through the window. So I am of the opinion, sir, I was thinking about it just a few minutes ago. Well, enjoying a little spirit. I was thinking about it, sir, in the membership room. I'm a spiritual man. Well, in the membership room, sir, I was saying, in the early 1920s, we had a housing program derived from the people in the community. However, if government takes that self-help program, modify it, give it a modern face. I believe that effort was made when we had the Sites and Services program. Because we had a Sites and Services program where the government would purchase land and subdivide the land in a way so that people can get back to the self-help program and build their own houses on Saturdays and Sundays. We had a lot of unity within the working class communities. And many of the houses in the early 20th century, but in my view, that is the breakthrough. Repatriation funds from the Panama Canal. And we see a major reduction. So when the state took up the issue, the state should have been complimenting the people in the effort. Because the state, I agree with the reality that the state cannot do it alone, especially in these hard economic times. So I just feel that it is wise to suggest to my friend, look to see if we can create a modern model, or whatever you choose to call it, template, precedent, whatever, or new blueprint, that would allow us to come up with something where we strike a compromise with the poor people, where we can see again rented land to ordinary people, or land for sale at a reasonable price. Because we cannot allow the private sector to drive the pace of the price of land per square foot. The state is abandoning its duties, especially since we had self-government, where the state is telling me that they have no control over the price of land. The state can buy it from the plantations, buy it from poor people who buy it from people who are willing to sell land, and then the state can subsidize the land because the homelessness is more important than the few 3 cents that you got to pay for the land itself. You know when they gave us land to build houses? When the sugar estate declined in revenue because of the price of sugar declining and losing markets overseas in order to save themselves and sustain themselves as a business in this one big sugar plantation, they sold out the lands. And people should know this very well, because there are families in here who were in the forefront of selling out that land for poor people. And what I can't understand now, the state got power, and there's lots of land, either nothing to do on it, producing nothing, and we can't get involved in a land program and give poor people the opportunity to purchase land. I am telling you, I believe that communities would do it. I believe that community organizations would do it. They would coordinate activities. I know more than 5 or 6 families that are willing to come together. Some are carpenters. We've got a policy here, sir, that if a man is a carpenter that builds houses for everybody in the world, and then you got the house now for yourself. Man is over 60 years old, never own a house, build 1 million houses for people. The man is willing to build a house. And UDC, and your RDC, because that's where I say can't talk about housing unless I include the 2 other units that are supposed to be constructing houses for poor people too. So we have to have a focus on a national housing policy. That all the different agencies that are responsible for building houses work concomitantly on ideas and on application of the ideas for development in order to address the issue of homelessness. Homelessness far exceeds 20 or 25,000 houses across Barbados. And to me, it is more than unreasonable to ask anyone, minister. I know I am going to be accused of favoring somebody and favoring nobody. It is hard for one minister who does not have control even over the 20,000 or 25,000 houses that he's supposed to build, especially when it got a lot of private sector, intervention in applying the policy, sir. And I feel that we need to sit down and have serious discussions. I know some of the prices that people paid for land in the 1890s. I know the land, when the land was sold out in Carrington Village. I was not alive, but I read occasionally. So I know you can go and read Marshall's text on the plantocracy, and you will see it very clear. When persons sold out Welch's and when persons sold out Carrington Village. And they didn't give it to us because they felt that poor people want land. They sold it to us because they wanted money. They had major debates on whether we creating slum areas too close to government house, sir. They had people some of them all, we have a bus, and we have murals, and we have all kind of inscriptions on walls out here with people who didn't believe that black people should be living in Carrington Village. And who, when they built the houses in the Ivy itself, especially the lower part of the Ivy to the western side, when they sold the land, they even gave grits and sand because they didn't want certain types of houses to be built in that area. But some of the areas that we now call ghettos, the people who sold the land and the early people who purchased the land wanted a specific type of house there. And that is why you have places like Carrington Village, and you got Belmont Road, and you see how it is in Carrington Village, and you can look at the architecture in Pine Road, and you can see the difference in the thinking of the real estate agents. And what black people had, we built Carrington Village. And what the other people had, they built Belleville and Pine Road. The social divide. The social divide in values and morality. They had their own morals, and the other people had their own morals too. So housing policy is not wood and sand and grits and steel and straps for hurricane purposes. This is a wide debate that the state must have, and not just my friend, the Minister of Housing and Lands. And that is my fair comment on it, sir. I know that some of you can hear I'm at the end of the show. Sir, I had in my area, there are now 12 houses available. So much? Or inflating it? Right. And I had, since 1980s, I have not had 20 houses constructed in one of the most densely populated areas in Barbados. That housing policy has failed. I hear people talk about housing and trying to find out what do you mean by housing. I ain't talking about people that know what a mortgage. The people I talk about don't know what is a mortgage. They will never qualify for a mortgage. They can't even get a basic loan to buy a fridge. So they don't want to know about mortgages and how much interest you got to pay on the mortgage and what conditions and amortization. And they don't want to hear that. I talk about poor people who walk the streets every day in my district. My house is on the roadside, there are rum shops, sir. And they knock the door looking for a house. We have to have a housing policy that address the needs of these people. We also have to have a housing policy that take into consideration, I'm sorry that the honourable member is not here from St. James, because we have to face reality. If people are saying that Barbados is the amputee capital in the Caribbean, and probably percentage-wise might be in the world, you can't build houses and got bedrooms upstairs and steep stairs because of the square foot and the size of the house. I expect a disabled man to be able to get up there. They ain't getting in the elevators. So we have to study the model. I don't even feel that we should continue to build houses, what we call samey. It looks. Because that's how you just get the ghetto, the clustering, and you're building on land without the kind of recreation facilities that is responsible. And you have to ask fundamental questions. When we build these kinds of concrete jungles without recreation facilities, if it is not commensurate with the massive increase that we see in antisocial behavior, is that not a consideration that we need to hear some conversations about? When people say, man, don't mind he or she is from the pine. Don't mind he or she is from the ivy. Don't mind he or she from down the farm. They behave so down there all the time. Are these social factors that we need to take into consideration, especially when people slanting the causality that is responsible for antisocial behavior? And that's why I said there must be a model. I even believe, sir, that we must take into consideration when we're building these houses, commercial units. So that if persons have processed the, I gotta call it thrift too, if they possess the thrift or the entrepreneurial spirit, but they got that spirit, but they can't get the required square feet to buy 2 iron boards and an iron and decide I will press for anybody in the community, like my friend from St. Peter, who would need his clothes pressed and everything. That somebody can rent a small unit and decide, look, I've been pressing here, I'm bringing a legitimate income that I can pay rent for the same place. I mean, no kind of innovative thoughts is going to be applied to a housing program. And that's why it says not NHC's problem alone. It is a problem where the welfare department itself was either forced, because some of the very people who could be beneficiaries from it, they criticize a policy. Tell people pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And the people who they want pull up themselves in the bootstrap got on rubber slippers from Kerpalani or Adams or one of these places. And they tell, pull up yourself by the bootstrap. Huh? Huh? Why you always trying to tell you who backward the ideas are? Huh? Sir, a housing policy we need to spend some time on a housing policy. You can't feel comfortable day in and day out sending people from the university, the ministries that are responsible for social services, sending out people all across the community. Look at our housing problems. The problems is homelessness. I only mentioned a couple people who constitute that body of homelessness. Ex-cons, people who come out from the mental hospital, and the people say that they have already been restored to lucidity. And they're walking all around town looking for a space, to the extent that the bodies seem to be making the required adaptation where they can sleep in the rain, sleep on the cold sidewalk. I wonder how much of us really drive around at night and see what's happening out there by the Treasury Building. They got more clothes around there at night and people than the amount of people that in the traffic that pass through Cave Shepherd or any stores in town. I am not advocating in any way that we should pass any legislation. I've had my wrestling with that kind of behavior. When World Cup cricket came here, I was accused of bringing a paper to the cabinet, and I became the biggest critic of the paper. Why do I write papers? That's the logic of it. I ain't writing the paper, you want the paper, you make a noise with me for the paper, bring the paper. But the reason why I never brought it is because I didn't support it. So if the formality is right, approved on it and send it back to the PS, and then the cabinet like it because Prescod delivered it, but when it get there, it said, not me. When I read the paper that was submitted by the social workers, they was putting power in the hands of the police force to take people off the street. I believe that the program was suitable for Mussolini in Italy or for Adolf Hitler of the day. I was not going to allow any civil service or any minister or prime minister to tell me I have to do it because I brought it to cabinet. Because it only comes to cabinet for further discussion. I had a view, and I brought an honest view to the cabinet. And so I'm saying and urging ministers that if you have a limited housing program, as long as the program has a housing, it gives you an opportunity to express your views on housing. And you can't express your views on housing if you don't also take into consideration those people who don't have houses. That's what homelessness is all about, sir. I would hope, sir, and I would hope that my people in St. Michael's East could at some point see a program that would allow us to have more than the amount of houses that I've had in my community constructed, but not necessarily given. I will hope that we will have a program where since 1980, when the houses were built in St. Barnabas, and I had about 80 people in 1980 in the area asking me for houses. And now we got less than a dozen. 40-something years after. I will hope, sir, that I see a program that gives me joy in my heart. So I heard the minister, my friend, saying, we have houses built here. Minister, I don't want to appear to some to be showing any level of ingratitude because it's just the styling of the government. But I would like the government to change its styling and to understand that I have people in my area that never own a house yet but willing to pay rent. And all I'm asking you, sir, is to look to see if you could get some land in the belt too. Because if it was the urine and the species that defecate on the land space there that was responsible for us not building houses, building a house, building an institution for senior citizens, and I still got cows doing what they should not be doing, and horses doing what they should not be doing on the borders of the Botanical Garden. I want some land, even for the expansion of Belmont School, which your ministry is also responsible for. You're the government landlord. So I also want you to take some of the little things that I've said to you today, and I'm saying it, sir, I'm saying it not to be contentious, controversial, to use a few simple terms, but sir, I am hoping that I share a couple ideas with you that will shed a little enlightenment on those who box in, so that your duty is to address the housing problems when all of them talking about the 20-something applications at the Ministry of House and HC. Or not, those who praise you know, when you don't reach the mark that has been set for you, the government will be saying it is not our fault. It is the incompetence of the minister. So for those who can't see and don't understand these things, I just want to say, for those who have eyes to see, sir, let them see. And for those who have ears to hear, please let them hear. Thank you very much, sir, for allowing me to speak for a couple of seconds.
You had 30 minutes, don't remember that, just a couple of seconds. Almost 30 minutes, you had not in a couple of seconds. Just to remind you. I remember to make yourself.
I'll also speak for a few seconds.
Hoping you get 30 minutes also.
Yeah, this is in Trevor timology. Just kidding. Honourable member, sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, I just wish to add my voice to this discussion, sir. I want to commend the Minister of Housing for the work that he is doing, sir, in relation to housing Barbadians. I want to commend the government, really, for putting tremendous focus on this most important area, sir. But I also feel like I have to locate my conversation, perhaps in a wider context, only to be able to offer some perspective that perhaps has not yet been shared during the course of this conversation, sir. I want to begin, sir, by discussing what I think should be a separation between homelessness, because not everybody who is looking for a house should be considered homeless. And I wouldn't want for the numbers to go out to suggest that Barbados has 30,000 homeless people. And when in fact, you may have children of persons who are looking for a house who are housed. And while they're looking for a house and legitimately need to have a house, I wouldn't want for them to be characterized mistakenly as falling among our homeless numbers. But I do believe that that conversation, sir, is necessary, and that is one that we should have. Because there are a number of young people who would leave the university, sir, eager to join the labor market, eager to perhaps buy a vehicle, as many young males are, and then eager perhaps at some point to own a house. And of course, we all know, sir, that we produce more persons sometimes from the university, from schools, than we have housing, than we have jobs, than we have space sometimes. It is the reality, sir, for most small island developing states, sir. And I also feel like I wish to clarify the idea that every person who's experiencing a shock is immediately homeless. You could be unhoused temporarily, but you're not necessarily homeless. And I feel that these definitions and these separations are essential to an understanding of this topic, and essential in the formulation of adequate social policy, adequate housing policy, sir, so that we do not make, having used the language, sir, that we do not make the mistake of attempting to do something, sir, when our solution lies elsewhere. But I do take the point again that in relation to those of us who've had fires in my constituency before I was MP, we've experienced a whole block falling in, sir. We've seen Elsa, we've seen Ashfall, and it has no, as minister, as it was at some point, the role of the member for St. Thomas to be responsible for a number of these things, sir, the privilege I call it is no mine. To find a way to help persons who find themselves in what are really difficult circumstances. But I would want to say, sir, and I think I can say so without fear of contradiction. Even though, sir, we will never be in a position to respond immediately to every single situation. No government can. No government. A fire happens today, a person wants to be housed at the same time. It may not happen, sir. But I can say without fear of contradiction that this government, sir, has placed persons who've been displaced, sir, the most efficient manner. It has had the fastest response, sir, to those circumstances, sir. And even when we are unable to do it, there are always circumstances where we're seeking to resolve it. But what troubled me was the ad hoc nature within the government. Because, sir, in the Ministry of People Empowerment, which became after ELSA, even more so, the agency, the ministry responsible for helping persons who were temporarily displaced, it became apparent that we needed to have a structure within which we could administer this kind of work. And we took social workers who were responsible for other programs, and we brought them together. And we asked these social workers to be able to respond. And my cabinet colleagues would remember very recently, sir, I brought a paper to cabinet to create a new unit within the ministry that we call, sir, the Resilience and Reintegration Unit, to be responsible for just this, where persons are displaced because of some shock, some externality, or because of covariate shocks, whatever the reason is. Or if it is a fire, sir, that this unit now becomes the unit that is responsible for helping persons cope with that transition period. So, yeah, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East has recently been a beneficiary of that work, sir. So the point is that we are moving to being able to respond a lot faster to these shocks. Now, as I said, sir, it's not always going to be the case where you are able to respond as fast as you like, because while the ministry has put in place a system to be able to help persons, sir, it is going to take time. The other thing you might have noticed, Honourable Sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that we placed an ad, the Ministry of People Empowerment recently placed an ad in the newspaper. We sent it to the Ministry of Housing. We've been working with Housing to make sure that it was done. We placed an ad in the newspaper where we said we were willing to pay upfront 3 months' rent to persons who would be willing to rent to the government to enable us to be able to house these persons, sir, temporarily while we find other methodologies to be able to deal with their circumstances. So that the Resiliency and Reintegration Unit, sir, is already busy putting in place a framework, including the number of persons who came forward, sir. And I want to thank the Barbadians, the landlords who came forward and offered their places of housing, sir, for us to be able to use in these circumstances, because, of course, it becomes more and more apparent that you have to put yourself in a position, sir, to be able to do this kind of work. And we have not stumbled on these ideas, sir. These are things that we saw when we were traveling the world. There are units, sir, responsible for things like this. It is conversations that I would have had, sir, with the Alliance to End Homelessness, sir, as we try to figure out a way to address some of these circumstances. But it is nothing that you can resolve overnight, but I can say with great certainty, sir, that we are making strides, sir. The other important point, sir, is that we have to look, as the Honourable Member for St. Michael East said, sir, we have to look at circumstances where a person's socio-economic status will make it very difficult to own a house. The American philosophy that the member spoke of in terms of pulling your own self up by your bootstraps really is an American philosophy. The idea that, you know, they praise a person who comes from nothing, who receives no state intervention because they don't have that kind of same social democratic underpinning. Praise a person who comes and on the strength of their own hard work and a lot of luck and a lot of help, sir, from other friends, sir. I once heard, sir, a former president said he received a small loan of $1 million from his father. So, you know, there are things, sir, that persons have access to that people who are raised in certain places would never have access to. I could never get a small loan from my father of $1 million. I would not even get a loan of $1 million from a bank because they don't have that kind of capital. But the point is, sir, that we have to create housing, sir, for persons who are in that bracket, and we have been. We have been, sir. We have been creating housing for persons in that bracket. Of course, we're going to have to be able to do more, sir. We are going to have to be able to do more, sir, to make sure that we can ensure that all persons have access to housing. But in relation to homelessness, sir, the ministry has just completed, or is in the process of completing a policy on homelessness. Because to me, if you don't know where you're going and you're just doing, you're wasting time. You need to have a policy. We are settling a policy on homelessness. We just did a point-in-time count, sir, for the first time of the number of persons in Barbados who are homeless, sir. We're about to do a second one. And at some point, it will be able to give an average amount of persons in Barbados, sir, who are homeless. As you know, sir, we increased monies to the Alliance to End Homelessness, sir, and this resiliency unit. I feel that we have to put ourselves in a position, sir, where we prevent homelessness, we protect the persons who are homeless, and we reintegrate them as fast as possible, because the longer you stay on the street, the more difficult it is for you to reintegrate. And that which was supposed to be a temporary, transient experience, regrettably may become a permanent experience. And it is our duty to ensure that it does not become a permanent experience, sir. That is why our social services agencies are so critical. And I believe, sir, that at the welfare department takes a lot of beating in this country. The welfare department is everybody's beating board in Barbados, sir. Of course, the welfare department also helps a lot of people, and I know that for a fact, but I feel there are things that we have to be able to do in all of our institutions. We have to make access easier. It should be easier for people to access help, sir. And we have to make it easier by how people walk in, if they do it online, if it is a casual conversation. That is why the amalgamation and bringing the social services to the communities is going to be so important, to make sure that people have access where they live to the benefits of the state, sir. These things, sir, are going to be very important. The other thing I feel, sir, is that there are certain areas where we have gaps. If you are a person with a disability in Barbados, an adult especially with a disability, and your caretaker is no longer able to care for you, we do not yet have a facility able to properly care for adults with disabilities. And all that, sir, is an example of one of the things we say, sir, that you should see coming and therefore shouldn't find yourself in a position where you have to react. We have to have facilities in Barbados, sir, for persons with disabilities as they get older, sir. Even as they're younger, but as they get older, it is even more critical to ensure that they do not become homeless or that they do not end up in an institution like the psychiatric hospital, because persons do not have, the other family members do not know how to care for them, and that's the easiest thing to do, sir. It is wrong. It is wrong. I am convinced, sir, that there have been a number of persons with disabilities who ended up in the psychiatric hospital because there was no other place to put them in Barbados, and because family members and other persons did not know what to do with them. It is wrong. That is why, sir, we have to fill those gaps in terms of the coverage that we're able to offer, because I believe, sir, that this conversation is a serious one and that you have to look at it in its entirety. I also hold the view, sir, that we have to look at transitional housing. A lot of our shelters, whether it is for battered women, whether it is for the elderly, whether it is for persons who go through a shock, sir, to make sure that we can take care of them. And I also feel, sir, one of the tragedies of social work and social service is that persons feel that a person's entire situation and life stands before them when they reach that social service agency, sir. But people are born, sir, as babies in a family. The family has a responsibility for caring for that child. Something may go wrong in the family. We send our children to school for an education. The vast majority of our children leave school without qualifications, sir. We then ask these persons to enter the labor market. It is difficult to find themselves properly involved in the labor market because of all these preceding factors. All these things, sir, that to me paved the way for persons to be ending up homeless, paved the way for many of our same people, like the minister spoke of from St. Michael East. A lot of these persons, sir, who then do not have the economic wherewithal to enter the market and buy a house, sir. But I feel that beyond making it easy for persons to have a house, which we must do in terms of its cost, we have to build a society of people, sir, educated enough, resilient enough, loved enough in their community, sir. Relationships are critical when you look at homelessness. Many of the people who end up homeless, sir, have broken down every possible relationship. A number of the older men who are homeless, sir, have had a number of children at a number of different houses, sir, slept in several beds, and in their old age, there is not a bed to welcome them. Because in every single instance in all those households, sir, they've broken down the relationships. So you have a number of older men, sir,
who should not be in the position that they are in. Some of them would have worked. Many of them, sir, as I've come to realize, never paid NAS. I have a constituent, sir, I visited him recently, sir. He's waiting on his NAS check. I meant to tell the Honourable Member for St. Peter. He's waiting for his NAS, what happened to me? He's waiting for his NAS check, sir. But when I checked, he doesn't even begin to have the contributions. And so I feel we have to have a conversation around persons paying in their NAS payments, sir, so that as they get older, they have access to some kind of income, sir. This conversation, sir, is easy to become one that is political, easy to become one that is salacious, but we have to give it serious examination and serious consideration if we are going to have serious solutions. And I say that, sir, because I recognize, sir, that we need a real paradigm shift in this conversation, sir. A conversation on homelessness needs to be a conversation on education, on health care. When we talk about housing, sir, it is not only about not having a place to live. Sir, I grew up in the Pine in a housing scheme. Sir, it's probably the biggest housing scheme in Barbados. I love the Pine more than I could love anything else, sir. I grew up there. It is responsible for who I am. I know you can say so. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have the Honourable Member for Christchurch, East Central, West Central. He's telling me not as much as I love St. Michael South. But Mr. Speaker, sir, I love the people in St. Michael South, of course, because they're in the same circumstances as me, the same as a member for St. Michael East, sir. We grew up, sir, in these housing schemes. You see the Pine solution, Haynesville solution, that the Honourable Member for St. James South will be aware of, sir, the housing schemes in the same West Central, Christchurch, and in the Bayland. You build these housing schemes, sir. You build housing solutions, but you do not create play parks. Me and the Honourable Member for St. Peter were just having this conversation. You do not create the play parks. You do not create any space for economic activity when you build these facilities, sir. And this is going back. This is not the Honourable Member for St. George South. He's working to change it. But I am talking about our building methodology over the years. So that when you grow up, sir, as a young man growing up in the Pine, at that time the Pine was hustling. Economic, sporting activity every day. The basketball court pop off, sir, if I can say that word in here. The football fields, the cricket, everything. But you had so many children that about 70% could never play. You had the Pineless Creative Workshop were busy, sir, at the time, sir. They had the community center doing conscious, important work, sir. But other people can't use it because you only got one. And so we have to think carefully about how we build out our society so that all of us, so you could create one solution and cause another problem. For every Newton's third law of motion, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When a force acts on a body, an equal and opposite force acts on some other body. Essentially, sir, what I am saying is that we have to be serious. I have watched in the recent past, sir, my name in the press, saying all kinds of things. I didn't even come here to address that because I am so focused. And if you stop, as I think it was Churchill who said, if you stop to throw stones at every dog that barks at you along the way, you will never get to your destination. Let them bark. This government is focused, sir. When I look at the work coming out of the Honourable Member for St. George South in relation to the houses that we are building, sir, I am proud of it, sir. And it tells me, sir, that on this trajectory, eventually, sir, we will be able to climb this mountain. But I do feel, sir, that we have to have this conversation about the kind of citizens that we are producing, sir, and the kind of social support for those who fall out. It is easy. I am the exception to the rule where I came from. I believe you might be too. I know the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central is. I am the exception to the rule from whence I came. Because people from the Pine, sir, are not supposed to come into this place. I heard the Honourable Member from St. Michael South East, the former member, sir, permit me to say, Hamilton Lasher used to say so all the time. And it's not that he was saying we weren't good enough, but the structural conditions around those housing areas make it difficult for people to be their best self. And it is that we have to be able to address, sir. How do we create conditions to allow the children of poor people to be their best self, sir? And that is what drives me. That is why I know that we have to have a housing solution, sir, that works for every single person, sir. I have a lot of notes. You know, I haven't been able to use most of them. I will close on this, sir. In Barbados, we have a society that is aging. The Honourable Member called it the amputee capital of the world because, regrettably, it seems to be so. But even if we are not the amputee capital of the world, sir, we are among the oldest countries in the world. In the very near future, Barbados will be a super-aged society. We will be old, sir. The average Barbadian is now 40 enough. We believe, sir, that by 2050, the average Barbadian could easily be over 60. There are about 25% of Barbados, sir, right now, is over 60. That's a lot. 20% is over 65. Sir, that is a lot. And when you ask yourself, how do you plan? So you got to plan housing for them too. You have to plan housing for them too, sir. And that, to the extent that is why this government has made the bold assertion to be working with BARC, sir, and the Sir Optimist, the Prime Minister announced it, to build housing in every parish to be able to accommodate persons where they come from. I also feel, sir, that we have to make it easier for if a person in the community decides she wants to keep 3 old people, give her a little training and a little support, sir. But you know, if I determine that in my community I want to keep 3 people, to ease the burden on a country, you have to go through almost as much red tape as if you are a billion-dollar company, seeking to do billion-dollar business, not trying to help people in this country, sir. We have to do better. And I understand, sir, of course you have to have standards. I'm not reckless. But we have to use these standards, sir, in a way that is useful. You know, not everything that is meant to be an asset, sir, becomes an asset when you determine that you're going to straitjacket people and treat it as a liability. You stop people from coming in the welfare department because they got on armhole shirts back in the day, because this government stopped that. Or you couldn't go in the welfare with short pants, or if your shirt got in holes, sir, well, you're poor. So you got to go and borrow your neighbor's suit. Sir, when I was a boy in 1992, I will close on this, sir. In 1992, when I had just finished my A-levels, and I did fairly well. At that time, the then government was sending home transport board workers, janitors, cooks, bus drivers galore. My mother and father, my mother a conductress, she went home. I had to take a year between community college and the university because I had to go and look for a job, sir. I spent that year, I must have written 1,000 applications. When people look at us and say we don't know these things, people don't know your story. And every man and woman in here has a story. But sir, when I had to go and write my applications for the first 5 months, you know how many people responded to me? 0. I then had to ask my great aunt who lived in Regency Park, because I know the psyche of people. I said, can I use your address to write my applications in the hope that somebody wouldn't see bottom clothes Wildy and determine that I was a rogue? And I asked her, she's now passed, God bless her soul. I asked her, can I use her address? And she said, of course, sir. And quick, I don't know if it was a coincidence, it could have been. But quick, so I had an interview at a radio station on the first one that I wrote using Regency Park, sir. Tell me that where a man comes from don't change his life circumstances. And I took that interview, sir. I did fairly well on the interview, I believe. They called me back. But at that time then, by the end of that term, sir, they decided they wanted to go back to school. Because I said to myself, there is no way, sir, that this will be the sum of my experience. And so when people try to write off certain communities, sir, I cannot feel good in my conscience about it. And when we bring a housing solution here, sir, that allows us to have 10% for persons with disabilities, 10% for persons in the lower echelons, 10% for people in upper echelons, because you have to create diversity. He had a policy that housing had that was a nonsense, sir, was that if you get a job, you live in a house, you get a job in the Pine, You start making $2,000 a month. Now, your mother is low class, your father, your brothers and sisters don't have no work, but you get a job. They somehow do some tests. This is before you, Minister. When I was a boy. And they will come and tell you your income now is too high, you gotta go and look for a place to live. You can't live here no more. Because all of a sudden, you get a job. Now, we went to school. You didn't go to university. You don't expect the person to get a job, but you can't live here. So now you want to push out any example of success out of the same community, and all that people see are people who did not make it, sir. Or people who they believe are struggling, sir. Because people don't see the values. People don't see the good morning, the good evening. May carry your grocery bag when you get off the bus. May bring water for you when you walk out. People don't see that when they walk through the Bay Line and Britain Sill and the Pine, and when they walk through my Lord Silver was born, sir. But what they see is they see housing, and they see poor people, and they see social problems, sir. But they don't see the character of people. This government, sir, has to correct a lot of that. Our social problems, sir, I close. Our housing problems are a lot more complex than simply providing housing. But I believe, sir, that we are on a good trajectory to be able to address a number of these things, sir, and I wholeheartedly support the Honourable Member for St. George South.
Honourable Member St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, for a very robust discussion. And I really would love the member for St. Michael East to, listen when I explain a few things to him that he raised. Because, and I will pick up from where the member for St. Michael South left off, and I thank you for the elucidation with respect to the whole aspect of homelessness, because we came here this afternoon really to address the matter of the housing deficit in this country. And while I support the comments coming from the member for St. Michael East, some of them, because the one with respect to not having a housing policy, I sure stood on my feet here with a bit more zest and a bit more fire to explain to the member that this government indeed has a housing policy that is different, and the member for Christchurch East Central. He spoke to the difference between the last administration and us, but I will go further other than the actual financial aspect of our housing program and how we have taken the housing program off budget and how we have introduced solar photovoltaic to drive the cost down of housing, to pay for services and infrastructure, where before a house, a 2-3 bedroom house that is valued at over $350,000, you can pay now $172 for a 2-bedroom, and for a 3-bedroom you can pay $226,000. If that is not creativity and innovation, if that's not making housing affordable, then I don't know what. We've also introduced to the housing policy for the first time, and the member for St. Michael South mentioned it while he was wrapping up, the whole focus on persons with disability. We just opened Arlene's Court, and the member for St. James North, he was there representing the disability community, where 10% of the houses were allocated to persons with disability. And that is a policy enunciated, signed off by every single member of the Cabinet of Barbados. We also went further, and we capped the price of services at $5 a square foot. We also capped the price of land. I heard the members mention it. And that is why we came from the dark ages of building at $657 a square foot, because the price of land was all up in $20-something. And that's what the private entities in partnership with government then were selling to poor people. And we capped the price of land as a government at $12 a square foot maximum. Now, I try repeating this. And I will refer to the answer the next time I have to repeat this, because I'm confident that it is written. And I would ask the good clerk of parliament, through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, to present it so my good friend from St. Michael's can have a look at it. Now, there are some points that I agree with. The whole aspect of transitional housing and emergency housing is so critical. Only this morning, member for St. Michael South, only this morning, I chaired a Hurricane Nelson meeting with your team. And member for St. Michael East, we discussed the whole aspect of fires, emergency housing, transitional housing. We didn't go into homelessness, and I'm glad that the member spoke on that extensively. But we have identified some lands. I didn't expect to go into these details. In St. Andrew and some other areas, like you rightfully said, member for St. Michael out East, the Ministry of Housing, not only housing, lands as well. We have a duty to identify lands for these issues, and we recognize that over the last couple of years, we have been getting more fires, especially in the area St. Michael North. It has been St. Michael West. It's been fire on top of fire. And we are hoping, member for St. Michael South, I have said to your DPS that I'm confident that my colleague will support what was put forward by the Ministry of Housing from the Property Management Unit, because it didn't come from me. I had management meeting and we said we have to find land for emergency housing in this country. Too many fires, transitional housing, persons having too many challenges. And we expect you to lead this charge when we do like this to you and say, you know, we will hand it over to people's empowerment. We can't manage that. You have the facility and you have the skill set to manage that. But what we can do is provide the land for you, and probably either yourself within your ministry or the Ministry of Housing engage a contractor to build whatever transitional or emergency housing there is. And it's true. We have to move away from just looking at housing just to accommodate persons who are working. And while the debate was narrow in focusing on that aspect, we have to now look at emergency and transitional housing. The whole aspect of homelessness, I wouldn't go into that any further because the member for St. Michael South, he touched on it. But I want to say to you, member for St. Michael East, and I will come to the member for St. Joseph shortly while I wrap up. The houses at Haggett Hall, they're all about ready. But you have some land on the western side of those 12 units that we looked at. And I'm confident that that land, you also have identified that land as given to you by a former prime minister. And I know we had a site visit, and we're in the process of acquiring that land because it can house at least another 30 persons. And like I always say to you, you can't get all. You have to share. You have to share. You can't get 100%. And you're shared because we met, and even though you have 12, I won't say how much of those 12 that you have, but we sat down and we came up with a number, and I know you are satisfied with the number. All right? Now, Mr. Speaker, the member has me laughing, huh? We are now building houses, and the member for Christchurch West corrected me. We are under $300 per square foot. Once or twice we went over the $400 mark, but we are not at $615 or $657. That occurred in 2016 it was, and we're in 2024. So if it was that then, you could imagine what they would build houses for now, at this stage. Now, someone touched on rent to own, someone touched on rentals, and yes, it's not just home ownership through acquiring a mortgage, but the government's policy that we signed off to spoke to rent to own, whereby persons can begin renting for a period. They get enough skin in the game that they can go and access a mortgage. I understand the whole aspect of persons who can't afford to get a mortgage, and we are catering to those persons. I don't believe that what we have at Solaris Court, where we're looking at, and the member for Christchurch East Central mentioned the whole aspect of the urban renewal project. And we're looking to acquire the lands at Greenfield. If you understand Greenfield, Greenfield is in a very dire state. No ambulance or fire truck can navigate those narrow roads in Greenfield. And while we come here and we talk about the city and some of the challenges and putting houses in the city, we really have to address the safety and the health of persons living in the city. And we have plans that I would not go into here, but I know the social survey was completed last week. I have not seen the results, but I've received a note from the supervisor that the social survey has been completed, and we are supposed to meet on that aspect of the project whereby we are moving persons into Solaris Court from Greenfield with a view to go into Greenfield and fix Greenfield. We don't have money from IDB now. We don't have the HNUP project, but we know the urban regeneration must bring some life back to the city. And that is one of the projects that we are focusing on. While I wrap up, Mr. Speaker, national housing, and I will say this again, national housing has moved away from building houses. And yes, of course, urban and rural are part of building out the housing stock in this country. As I've seen in the Hurricane Elsa program, National Housing was not the only agency, but we had Urban Development Commission and the Rural Development Commission who played their part in repairing and rebuilding 45% of those houses. And we know urban and rural across this country engage, and the member for Christchurch Ref can support me, engage in addressing repairs and rebuilds for working class people and persons who can't afford to rebuild or repair their own homes. Mr. Speaker, Castle Grant, I heard the member for St. Joseph, and while he's asking for more than we have allocated, we certainly will relook his request, because it is true. And I started out in that vein by saying to this chamber, there are persons who by nature of the family structure, they have sufficient artisans in their family who can build homes. And all they're asking for is the land, and land at a good price, affordable price. I shouldn't use the word good, but affordable price. Because selling someone, member for St. Michael's South spoke about the pine. And I didn't speak to the pine today, but we have some 40 acres where we're doing the AIA study to address the density in the pine. 13 persons and 12 persons and 10 persons living in the house. The land at Lower Burney, soon to be finished in terms of the AIA. Then we can begin the infrastructural works. Plans have been submitted to Town Planning and Development. And in the financial year 2023-2024, in the first quarter, we expect that project to start in terms of the infrastructure. And during the year, while we carry on the survey that we're doing presently to determine who are those persons with the member for St. Michael Southeast, we intend to address the poverty situation. And there's nothing saying, I heard a member for St. Michael's South, and it was touching when he said that persons expected him, because he was from the Pine, to stay in a realm of decay, social decay, for his entire life. And it is true housing, good housing, or I should say, poor housing is associated with ill health and social decay. And I often say in this chamber, I think it was John F. Kennedy who said that housing, a home, is the most central and organizing unit of our society. It is where you pay taxes, where you vote, and is where you educate as well, not just at the schools. So we have a duty to our citizens to ensure that we address the areas like the Pine. We address the decay of those housing units that were built back in the 1950s. And while we're doing that, we're also transferring title to these individuals within the housing estate. Because like the member for Christchurch East Central said, it is an asset that you can leverage for your children's education and for your advancement. You can utilize that. The bank don't recognize working class people without an asset that they can leverage. So when we give title, members, Mr. Speaker, we give title not only with a view to own your home, but with a view that you can leverage that asset to better yourself and to provide for your family, or as we often say, for your children's children. So this 4.142 acres at Castle Grant in St. Joseph to be vested in National Housing Corporation, I am happy that the members did support this resolution, and we have some very interesting comments coming from all members, and it is my wish as Minister of Housing to get some action on this land, as well as the other lands that have been allocated and approved by the Cabinet, so we can address not only the housing issue in diverse categories, persons earning less than $2,500, persons earning between $25,000 and $5,000 and upper, where we call premium. But indeed, we can address some of those persons who, for the want of a better word, cannot afford to go to the bank and get a mortgage. And we have put something into our policy to cater to that grouping as well. So with those few words, Mr. Speaker, I beg that this resolution now pass. I thank you.
The question is that this resolution do not pass. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed. Honourable member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that we adjourn today's sitting until Tuesday 20th at 3 in the afternoon.
The question is that this honourable chamber be adjourned until 3 p.m. Tuesday, the 20th day of February, 2024. All of our members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 20th day of February, 2024 at 3 p.m.